Jason Thor Hall, otherwise known as Pirate Software, has been in a lot of controversy over the last few weeks. From having a few gamer moments to going against the Stop Killing Games movement, which, by the way, you should sign, link below to all the websites, and of course, a furry affair with his wife, with someone who's 10 years younger than him. I don't know if I'm keeping that in. And this has led to him getting a lot of heat over the last little bit. Some of it is deserved, okay, because not only has he been making all of these mistakes back and forth, but he's not taking any kind of responsibility for it. And you probably know this guy from YouTube Shorts or Twitch, being awarded some kind of streamer award. I don't remember what it was, and I don't really care to look. But he actually started as a game developer under the same name, Pirate Software. They made a game called Champions of Breakfast that did reasonably well, I believe, and then they followed it up with a Kickstarter for a game called Heartbound. Heartbound raised $20,000, and some people even donated $1,000 to the project. And yet, the game isn't released yet. The development of the game started off strong, but has since, over the past few years, slowed to a crawl. We're at a point now where updates are becoming annual. This, along with Piratesoftware's other controversies, has led to the game getting a lot of negative reviews. But how is the game actually? The answer is, well, not bad. The opening to Heartbound is really strong. The game has a solid art style. I mean, the title screen alone looks beautiful. And let's get this out of the way so I don't bring it up over the course of like the rest of this video. The soundtrack in this game is actually really good. Like, I think it's great. Now, of course, there are some immediate comparisons to Undertale, which I totally understand. If you look at some of the sound effects the game uses, especially when it fades to white, it does feel very similar to Undertale. However, I do think this game does a lot to separate itself from Undertale, specifically when it comes to gameplay. However, much like Undertale, the writing is pretty solid. I think the overarching story needs some work, but a lot of the moment-to-moment dialogue, and especially the jokes, land really well. I realized I was holding my microphone the wrong way, but you know what? Just leave it like this. The game opens with you playing as Lore, a boy who has a best friend named Baron. After waking him up, getting him some food, and taking him for a bit of a walk, he goes missing. It seems the culprit is some purple demon thing, which, by the way, looks really cool. Like, a lot of the character design for this game, again, is really solid. You're immediately thrusted into combat, actually the only combat segment in the game so far. And it's really interesting. Instead of playing like the bullet hell of Undertale, it takes a more turn-based approach that sees you playing more mini-games in order to deal and not take damage. In this particular instance, we saw the usual weapon flies by a bar, kind of like in Undertale, but we also saw a mini-game where we had to bounce projectiles back at the enemy. We saw a mini-game where we had to click projectiles as they were falling in order to not get hit by them, and then one where we had to do a little Simon Says mini-game on the boss, but I didn't understand how that worked until like after it was done, so don't look at this, okay? Ignore it. After this, we're thrusted into a lot of narrative, and I think the story has an immediate problem where there's a disconnect between us and Lore. Lore cares so much about Baron. I don't, okay? I've seen this dog for 5 minutes, and I'm not kidding, 5 minutes, so I have no reason to want to see him return to us aside from the fact that he's a dog. Aw, dogs are so cute. I don't want the dog to get hurt. I don't give a fuck, okay? Who is this guy? Either way, I pretended to care about the dog and tried to go after him, and then we ended up interacting with this book that takes us on this crazy trip throughout all of these different worlds. There's a lot of moments in the game where it feels like the game wants to be mysterious, it wants to be intriguing, it wants to say, oh, look how deep and interesting we are. And it just kind of results in me being confused and not giving a shit. When you're making a game that's mysterious, there's a balance that needs to be struck between confusion and intrigue. If you're too confused, you're just not gonna care. I can be interested in what happens next, but I don't care to find out because it's so clear that I'm not meant to find out yet. And so I just kind of sit back on autopilot and say, okay, do what you want to do, game. I'll sit here, I'm here for the ride. Now, granted, again, this could be the intention and this could be expanded upon in the full release. This is early access, even though it's been early access for like 7 years at this point. So who knows? After this admittedly strong opening, the game splits between 3 chapters: the Tower, Animus, and Jotunheim. I tried to look up how to pronounce that. Some people are saying it's Jotunheim, or some people are like, it's Jotunheim. I don't fuck it. Like, whatever. It seems like you're forced to start at the tower, and it's a good place to start. There's fun characters, great music, and some decent enough gameplay here. This whole level is meant to be a sort of commentary on corporate life. In many ways, it can be subtle and interesting, and in other ways, it can be a little heavy-handed, okay? When you go into the elevator and it's only moving sideways and the character's like, that's because nobody moves up in the corporate ladder. Oh, brother, we get it! Each floor is rows of cubicles and ghosts that sit at these cubicles. They each have different quirks. Some like grass, some like soda, some are tidy, some are messy, but they ultimately are the same, doing the same thing. It brings to mind this idea of being a corporate drone, where it doesn't matter who you are, what you do outside of work. Once you enter that workplace, you're just a cog in the machine, and what you look like or who you are doesn't matter. The game actually explores this idea from the inside really well with this one minigame where you have to stamp some papers. Initially, you have to click to stamp it each time, but at some point, and I don't know because I just kind of fell into it, it starts doing it automatically. You just kind of sit there looking at it happening, and I'm a little embarrassed because it is like, oh my god, pretty lights, but I just kind of sat there almost mesmerized by it, and I think it's really cool that the game was able to pull something like that off because it really gives a solid commentary into how, in spite of how sad it can sometimes be to be in that corporate area, just being somewhere, needing to do a task and nothing else, can actually be somewhat appealing. Once you finish a lot of these mini games, you'll end up at the boss. The boss actually has an interesting mechanic where it doesn't fight on your terms and instead fights on its own terms, i.e. emotionally. The boss fight starts off with this UI as if it's going to be a regular fight, and then it gets shattered. And the only problem I have with this is that we've only fought one enemy before this, okay? We've had 2 combat encounters, so not to be that guy, but it's not like there's a ton of standards for us to get caught up to. You can't break the norms when the norms have barely been established, you know what I mean? Either way, this chapter is a really strong start. As you progress, you'll find these memories, which seem to be Lor's childhood. It looks like his parents were always fighting. Specifically, his mom was being kind of a dick, and his dad was being kind of a pushover. There are also many moments up to this point where Lor takes on a bit of a dark side. He's constantly having these negative thoughts in his head and sometimes even looks like purple. I kind of saw this as him having these 2 sides of his parents within him. He has his dad that is a bit more kind-hearted, and then he has his mom, which is just full of hatred. And if we look at the cover art of the game, we can see that he has like the 2 hearts that are connected. This could be the 2 sides of him that are kind of fighting for control over his emotions. I have no idea if this is right or anything, but I'm trying to pull something out of the game here. The next chapter is in Animus. Despite the name sounding a little ominous, the level is actually super wholesome. It feels like you're walking through a Saturday cartoon. You meet fun talking animals that all have distinct quirks that were fun to get to know. And just as I was really getting interested listening to this old grandma turtle talk, Baron shows up and says, "Hey guys, this part of the game's not complete yet." You can also try going to Jotunheim, and there's nothing there. So this is essentially where the game ends. The game will take you roughly 2 hours to get through with the current amount of content in it. However, I think it is encouraged that you do 2 playthroughs. There's very clearly a good run and an evil run. It's very short, but it is early access as much as that 7-year early access kind of looms over our heads here. Importantly, I think the game is good. The music, the art style, the battles, the jokes, it all relatively lands. In spite of that, because this game hasn't been updated in 7 years, I would highly not recommend you buy it. Do not buy this thing, okay? Because you are not going to get that full experience, and what is here is not a full experience. It's not a complete story. It's just a proof of concept. I think it's really sad. Because of Thor's actions, the team behind this game, and most importantly, the backers, are all kind of suffering. It's clear that Thor abandoned working on this game because he found streaming to be more profitable and more fulfilling. I don't really blame him for doing that, but it is a horrible look on the game and a horrible look on him. Now, I just want to make it clear, I don't think you should review bomb this game, okay? If you bought it as a backer, you feel let down, leave your negative reviews. But if you're just like, oh, this guy sucks at World of Warcraft, let me review bomb the game, don't do it, okay? That's lame. We don't need to do that. And in spite of that, I do feel bad that this game is getting review bombed, because even if it is entirely Thor's fault, it does suck to see somebody going through something like this. Because it's not just the game getting review bombed, it's also Thor getting lambasted at every turn. It's constantly people making videos deconstructing him and especially his career. Like, people are doing LinkedIn audits on this guy. It's kind of nuts, and I do watch a lot of it. It is entertaining. I can understand that it can be hard to deal with, especially at someone like myself who's put out his fair share of shitty game takes. Now, why development might have slowed could also be due to the coding of the game. I've watched a few videos from this guy named Coding Jesus, which I fucking love YouTube, okay? Because it's the only place where you could cite somebody by the name of Coding Jesus and it would be like a reputable source. And he showed that a lot of the coding is very short-sighted, and it's essentially what they call spaghetti code, which is code that is basically made to get a job done in the moment, but is going to bite you on the ass down the line. You're taking shortcuts now, and it means you're gonna have to take the long way later. And I think this is why development could have slowed. Maybe Thor got to a point where developing the later levels, because of his haphazard work in the first 2 chapters, is creating such a ball of tangled wire that he needs to untangle in order to get things working on the last parts of the game, that it's becoming almost insurmountable. Of course, this is just a theory. I'm trying to sort of piece together what's going on here. Thor has been maintaining that he's been working on it, which we don't really know what that looks like. And so I'm not trying to give a definitive statement on it, but this is just sort of what could be going on. If Thor is watching, because it seems like he watches a lot of the drama videos made about him, hi, finish the game. Don't do it to satisfy the people review bombing the game or satisfy the people who are using this as an excuse to hate you more than they already do. Do it because people believed in this project. They backed it. And at one point, you believed in it too. And it doesn't deserve to be abandoned. There are a lot of great things in this game, okay? The game has promise. It's fun. It deserves to be finished. If Thor wants to get past the wave of negativity in front of him, he needs to just take a step back, admit fault, and lay low, instead of constantly bringing the drama back up. I've never experienced hatred on the level of Thor, but again, I've experienced internet hate in the past, okay? I remember I made this video about Tomb Raider, and I thought it was so good and so much fun, and then the comments made it very clear to me that I called her Laura the entire game instead of Lara. And it was months, man. Months, every day I'd open up the game.
You're really calling her Laura for the whole review?
Yeah, I fucked up. Okay, sorry, geez. Oh, look at the dumb American. He doesn't know how to pronounce British names. Look at him, look how stupid he is. But you can't respond to it. I responded to one comment saying, oops, my bad, okay? But you can't sit here and constantly fuel it because it's just gonna relight that fire. Every time you respond to it, unless you are basically saying, okay, you're right, sorry, you're throwing gasoline on it. It's just gonna get bigger. And so there's 2 options. You either apologize, or if you really wanna stick to your guns, you just shut the fuck up. You take a step back, let it die out. As far as Heartbound goes, I hope I was able to bring a more balanced approach to the game and let you know if it's actually good or not. And I certainly don't want to add to the dog pile on Thor, okay? I think genuinely he's going through a lot right now, I'm sure. His game's getting review bombed, he's losing subscribers every day, people are mean to him every day. And even if he is sort of bringing it on himself, I don't really think it's right, you know what I mean? I think it's gonna happen, but you hate to see it, you know? I wish he could get to a point where he moves past this, because at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with the guy. I don't know the guy. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you've played Heartbound, what do you think about it? And if you supported Heartbound, if you were a Heartbound backer, what do you think? Because I feel like the opinion of the backers are what really, really matters here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an excellent rest of your day.